Hi guys, welcome to the Improvement Season podcast. It is me, Steve Hall, and we have over there Pascal Flor over in Berlin. How's it going, Pascal?
Yeah, it's going well.
It's going well. Pascal has grown his beard a little bit, so...
No, it wasn't intentional. It was just because I was lazy.
You guys should, if people haven't seen Pascal last year, the huge beard you had, the massive Russian
It's so crazy because just recently I realized that on IG, so on Instagram, you can actually look into your archive from the Instagram stories. And it was all the way back to January this year.
What does that big of an archive? Wow.
Yeah, you can put, so when you want to put stories into your highlights, you can actually go back into your archive and look up the videos and the pictures you posted on your stories. I think ever since January.
Wow,
I was just scrolling through that, and I was just shocked the way I was looking, because at the beginning of the year I was still wearing that beard and with the long hair, and I was just looking like shit. Why didn't anyone tell me? Or did you guys? Did you?
I think I probably told you to cut your hair for so long.
I blame it on you guys.
I need to find the archives. That'll be really interesting, because we have all the ones from the seminar and things. That'll be really cool.
Yeah, totally.
But so to go over our weeks. First of all, we have some questions that I posted over to IG and got some. So we're basically sourcing questions for topics and things on either Instagram or on our Facebook group. That's where you can find if you do want to ask one. Or if you ask one in the comments below, I'm sure we'll be able to save that and ask it another time. Nothing really has changed massively on my end. I am coming to the end of this mesocycle. I'm a little bit nervous because I got ill this week and trained through it, which I was able to overload. I was able to perform and have great sessions. I'm slightly concerned, though, that the fatigue that's going to have generated will make my actual overreaching week almost not able to properly do it. So I'll see how I'm feeling, but I might take an extra rest day or two in the lead up into next week, because I have that week, which will be my overreaching week, then deloading, and then basically on holiday. So I could always push my deload back a bit because I've got the holiday there, and I could deload on holiday. So it's not a massive issue. I say I've got this holiday as if it's booked and planned, but it is planned. It's just not booked. So we should be going away. So that all works out well. But yeah, this week was kind of tough in that sense. It's kind of I don't know if I always relate it to how it feels in prep when you're quite deep in and you're kind of just get the essentials done, get my work done, get my training session done, and then I can relax. And that kind of felt what it was a bit like this week. I wouldn't say I felt like I was in contest prep, I was stuffed all the time and I wasn't hungry, but I was just lethargic, just that kind of lethargy. But I still managed, I feel like sessions all went really well. Can't complain there. No, the really thing that I'm very happy with is that I've not had any flare-ups of injuries at all over, my entire off-season really. Nothing's really flared up. So I'm very happy about that, because that's incredibly rare. I find even people I train, quite often things come up. So I'm happy with that. How about you, Pascal? How are things gone? Some crazy weight loss.
Yeah, totally. So I actually started my cut last weekend already. Yes, I did it. I was a little bit premature, but it happened naturally. That's my excuse, at least. No, it was really like that. So last weekend, Katie and I, we went to a US car event with all the old timers. And man, let me tell you this, I don't know what has happened to the car industry with the car designs. Every car nowadays looks like shit, most of the cars at least. Back in the days, it was just it was basically art and a lifestyle. But anyway, so we went to that car show, which was a little bit outside of Berlin, and it took us a while to get there. There wasn't really anything proper to eat there, and I ended up in a massive deficit already on that day. Automatically, and I just said, okay, why not? So why not start it yet? Because it was such an easy deficit to have. I was quite active on my feet all day, so I did it, and I was already craving the card anyway. You guys know that. So that's what I did, and then throughout the week, I think on Monday, was it on Monday? On Tuesday? I think on Monday.
Sorry. I was getting the Instagram questions up and my phone just started playing.
So on Monday, it hit me out of nowhere, and I actually had fever. Right in the middle of the day, I just needed to lay down, sleep, and that was all I did for the rest of the day. No, it was on Sunday actually. Yeah, it was on Sunday. For the rest of the day, and I was just like feeling like proper shit. And I think that I ate something wrong. I don't know. There must have been something, because the next day I felt great again and I was back on my feet, but it just threw me off on that day, and I couldn't really eat as well. So I really needed to force myself to get some protein in, and that's what I did. So no excuses, right? Everyone is saying that in the fitness industry, right? So no excuses. I chucked down the protein, but it wasn't pleasant at all. I was really standing in the kitchen, made myself a whey shake, made myself a casein shake for bedtime. And I think it was the toughest protein shake I've ever drank to get down. But I made it happen. But for the rest of the macros, I was in a massive deficit once again, right? So, good start to the cut. And then throughout the entire week, I just lost the weight. And I would assume that a lot of it is simply water weight. It happened, I think, 2 or 3 years ago for the first time, where I did something similar, where I transitioned it into a cut, and I lost, I think, for the first week over 3 kilograms. And at that point, I reached out to Alberto Nunez, whether this is something that is also seen with his clients or something, because I've never experienced or seen something like that massive of a drop with any of my clients. Even with obese individuals or heavily overweight individuals. And this time around, in the time span of just 5 days, I lost over 3 kilograms once again, came all the way from 93.7 to 90.4. So a weight loss of 3.3 kilograms. So a massive drop, but it's just water, just glycogen that is depleted and stuff. But it's just crazy to see, because even now, after having worked with like lots of clients already, I've never seen it with any of my clients that someone is transitioning from a maintenance or cutting, from a gaining phase into a cutting phase, and is losing like over 3 kilograms in the time span of 5 to 6 days. And that is just crazy to see. Okay, there was this one day with a fever where I didn't really eat much, but still it is quite a drastic drop. And that just goes to show how much I tend to hold water when I'm at maintenance or in a gaining phase.
Yeah, I think I've seen the most is like maybe 2.5 kilos. Yeah. But more than that, that's a lot of weight. But yeah, I guess the fever would have implicated a bit, but it wasn't like you had like diarrhea and like were being sick, because then you deplete electrolytes, like loads of shit goes on there, or literally loads of shit. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's a good first week. Like we said off air, it's like you feel fine, your performance is good. Those are good 2 markers to go by if people are seeing this happen. And whenever it's the first or second week, I don't take those 2 like into consideration, because there's just water being shuttled around quite a lot. So
yeah, and I always like to say to my clients that it is a good indicator that we are truly in a caloric deficit. Even if you're changing your nutrition slightly in favor of vegetables and higher fiber intake, and you would assume that you are actually not seeing that quickly of a decrement in your scale weight, simply because you are having more food in your digestive tract and all that kind of stuff. Basically what happened to me in the last contest prep, when I actually increased weight for the first week instead of losing weight. But this time around, I don't know, something changed.
It is weird how different people respond to these things, because I have had clients go into like a diet and they just maintain for like that whole month, and then they take a diet break, and then they come out of that, and then they just lose like 3 pounds. You're just like, whoa. So if I average this out over the 2 months, it makes sense.
But I also think that I'm really past my body fat set point. So
your body's like, get this off.
Yeah, it is what we discussed over the past weeks, that I wasn't craving any kind of palatable food anymore. I needed to kind of force myself to eat all the time. It was kind of the first time that I actually had issues with eating, which is for someone who was nearly becoming a diabetic because he was so obese in the past and has no kind of sensation of being full or anything, that is a good indicator that you are above your body fat at that point. So yeah.
And I actually think it's kind of, if people are listening to this and thinking, oh, I can't remember the last time I wasn't hungry, or I can't remember the last time that I actually was like overly stuffed and like didn't want to eat more food, I would maybe challenge you to consider whether you've been gaining enough and been out of a deficit for long enough. Because I know for myself, I haven't felt the way I feel now for years. It's been ages since I've actually got to a point where I'm like, man, I actually have to eat more seriously. Always traditionally, it was like, yeah, bring it on. The only time I got to this before was before my last contest prep in 2014, when I was 190 pounds then, and then I was force feeding. I even ate, that's the only time I've ever eaten a whole tub of Ben & Jerry's because I needed the calories. They're like 1,500 calories, and I did not enjoy it. Whereas like any time between that and my last prep, I probably would have like loved to eat a tub of Ben & Jerry's. It would have been pleasurable because I don't think I ever let myself get to a point where I was actually a little bit uncomfortable. And I think sometimes to gain the most muscle, you have to be a bit uncomfortable with your body composition and potentially have to force feed a little bit.
When we were speaking, sorry to interrupt you there, but when we were speaking about that, I just saw a Instagram post of yours just yesterday.
Oh yeah,
with a back comparison, and that was just some crazy development, mate.
I remember Damien took it when we were in the gym. Damien's one of my clients, and I was just like, fuck. I was like, that's my back. I couldn't even believe it. I like, when I look in the mirror and at myself at the moment, I'm just like, oh, I don't think I look that different. And it's only when I see those sort of comparisons, I'm like, wow, like actually there could be some gains made. So I was really happy with that. The only point I was going to say was Mike talks about before, and this is the first time I've ever heard it introduced, was we know about body fat settling points. He introduced to me the idea of muscle settling points, in that you kind of have to push your body and then hold a higher amount of muscle mass for the body to like really hold on to it, and then like you push your muscle settling point up. I think he references like lots of different settling points for different various like elements of biology. But yeah, I guess it was just interesting to hear. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, because yeah, it's only been 10 months. So in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I've gained 5 pounds of muscle. And then I think, oh, it's only been 10 months. Maybe I've gained a pound. It's like, I don't know. It's hard. I never like to, I think you're the same, Pascal. I never like to limit ourselves to what is like the supposed on paper muscle rate gains, because they're incredibly slow after the first like 2 years.
And every once in a while you have the, I don't want to call our clients, but I have one client who is a little bit too caught up in the details when it comes to how quickly should I gain weight, how quickly should I lose weight, and when I don't see the exact amount I'm aiming for on a week-to-week basis, should we change the macros and stuff like that? And that is the wrong thing to go about it. Maybe we've talked about it in the past. Maybe you are in a spot where you're so well recovered. You have no external stressors whatsoever. You can sleep like 8 to 10 hours per night. You have nutrition nailed down. All the variables are in check, which haven't been in check in the past. And maybe you can gain like a novice, for example, right? Because everything is now in place, which have never been aligned before. So just keeping or restricting yourself or limiting yourself due to general recommendations is just, I don't know, shooting yourself in the foot, or overshooting actually the weight gain and gaining unnecessary fluff along the way. Let's say, let's turn it around. All the things I just mentioned, you're getting in less sleep, so sleep deprivation. There are lots of external stressors. You don't have your nutrition in check, all these kind of things. And then you're trying to aim for these ranges that are recommended. You're probably gaining lots of fat mass along the way.
Yeah, when you hear people who are like, they're in bulks of like 500 calorie surplus or something, which could be fine, but then they're skipping training sessions and like they're training twice a week, and you're just like, mate, you're just getting so much fat because you're just so inconsistent in the gym. But likewise, there's people who are very consistent. They've got everything in place, and then they're trying to like do a gaintaining period of time when it's like, well, just make use of this time. Like, you're having excellent sleep. You can go to the gym 6 times per week. Put yourself in more of a surplus. You'll gain more. So no, I think that was a good point.
I always, just on a last note here, I always like the term lean bulking, because what else do you want to do?
Fat
bulking? I mean, come on. No one wants to gain any significant amount of fat. So the aim should always be to gain as little fat as possible and the most amount of muscle mass as possible when you're gaining, right? So it should always be, quote unquote, a lean bulk, if you want to call it that. So it's just funny when people are actually using that term. So my goal is to lean bulk.
Of course.
Yeah, that's what I thought it is. So, but yeah.
So should we get to the questions?
Yeah, please.
Cool. So we have the first from Niklas. Niklas Lifts.
Yeah.
And he has asked, do you guys think you will be coaches your whole life?
That's a really interesting question, actually.
I mean, I coach Charlotte every day. No.
Of course, I mean, at the current state, I would say yes, but you never know what is going to happen in the future. And based on my experience and what I was going through in my life, I always thought at the moment what I'm doing is what I want to do for the rest of my life, because it felt good at that time. But of course, you evolve, you develop other interests and stuff like that, right? So it could possibly be that something else is coming up in the future that you can't possibly think of right now, because I would have never thought that I'm going to be an online personal trainer like 10 years back. Never, right? So you never know what is going to happen in the future. And this is what I think this is a common problem I see with a lot of people, that they are limiting themselves in actually what they learned, and that they think they can't possibly do anything outside of it anymore, because they only learned that and they have to be in that, area for the rest of their lives, like a conservative way of thinking when it comes to jobs and what you're able to do. That is maybe true for in some cultures and some former generations, so maybe our parent generation or their parents, right? Like the post-war parents, where it was way more important to have a secure job, to have a secure income. But nowadays, when we take a look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we are right now at the top because we have all the other things in check and at our disposal. We are secure. We have a roof over our head. We have all the time food available, right? All the things. And that allows us to fully try to live our lives the way we would like to. And it gives us all the opportunities. And in conjunction to that, we have the internet, which then, of course, opens even more doors for us. So sorry that I'm going off tangent here, but I'm just saying that you never know what's coming, and there are so many things you can't predict. And the luxury we have that we actually can pick and choose and always also turn around and go the other way is something you can use. And maybe this is something that will happen to us as well, and we can't really tell that now.
No, I think that's an absolutely fair answer. Like you don't, it's just, what was it? Do you guys think you'll be coaches your whole life? I think when I think about this question, I don't know if I'll be a coach as what I am now necessarily. And I don't think, when I think about my future and what I want to be doing, I for sure want to be coaching a long time still. But I think eventually I don't want to be. I don't want to be trading my time for money in such a same way. I want to hopefully have a bigger impact on more people. And I still feel like in a way I'd be coaching those people. I don't know how that will look, but if you look at someone like, I don't know, like Mike Israetel, he's not coaching anyone one-on-one, but he's effectively helping millions of people across the world kind of coach themselves. So I don't know what role I could potentially fill in that regard. But I'd love to think that I could maybe help in a bigger way. And that I think would require me not doing it so much one-to-one. That's in my vision, my head. Like I don't want to be, when I'm like 60 years old, doing exactly what I'm doing now. I'd love to be in a better, like different position to that. And whether that's having products that are selling, that are helping people coach other people, or whatever it might be. I don't think I'll be doing, and I don't think you will either, Pascal, this same thing that we're doing now in 30 years time. I think it will have evolved, but I think we may probably both be doing an element of coaching.
Yeah, maybe also something, reduce the amount of clients you take on, and then also, maybe diversify the areas you're working in and the things you're doing. And so while still actually having Revive stronger and helping people, which is the main thing why we're doing that.
So we have a question from, this is really annoying because I have to it only gives me a brief line of the question and not the entire question, but I think this is probably a good one because it's from Be Free Fitness, which is Brett, who actually trains at the same gym as me. And he has asked, what's your biggest struggle with regards to bodybuilding as a whole? So I don't know if you want me to start.
Yeah, go ahead.
So for me, for bodybuilding, it's certainly not the nutritional aspect. It's not the training aspect. They're very easy. I enjoy those aspects hugely. The recovery aspect, I love learning about sleep. I love learning about how to optimize recovery. Those things I think are all huge. For me, it's probably the social aspect of bodybuilding. And there's this is quite multifaceted. So it's also like general friends, those that might not understand. But it's also just bodybuilding on its own is quite an isolating style of sport. Like you don't have teammates. You can't go out for a beer afterwards after a football match or something like you might have done in the past. With bodybuilding, it's very isolated. Like you go into the gym, you do your workout, you come home, you eat your food. And to be successful, I think there is that element of isolation. But also I think in terms of social with other people, it can be difficult because like drinking, being out late, like partying, having meals out, not knowing exactly what nutritional information's there, going on holiday, traveling, being away from the gym and everything. They're big parts of being just a human being and being very social. And I struggle sometimes to allow myself to enjoy those enough, I think. Part of it, I think, is like a very positive thing for bodybuilding in that I'm very strict and regimented and I have structure. But I also struggle with the fact part of the time feeling like I'm in like a tug of war with myself. Sometimes I'm like, am I missing out by doing these things? Or am I actually love what I'm doing so much that I'm not missing out and actually I should just pour everything into bodybuilding? And I think we kind of discussed this a little bit, Pascal, when we talked about in-person friends, and that neither of us have a lot of kind of close friends around us that we see regularly. We have lots of friends like over the internet and like one another. We're very good friends. We don't see each other locally. And whether or not that's something we really miss or we should miss, and we were kind of a bit conflicted about it. I think that's my biggest struggle is like that, the social aspect in finding the right balance and thinking, am I going to regret the amount that I'm putting into bodybuilding now and potentially missing out on things? I always try and balance it. Like I still go on holidays. I still do go to weddings, social occasions. Like I'm not a complete social recluse, but I certainly don't get involved in those in the same way because that would deter from my overall goals in bodybuilding. And then it's the struggle of, is it worth the potential cost? I think that's my struggle. And then the other thing I think I just wanted to bring up that I find a struggle is sometimes a bit of the cliqueiness within bodybuilding. Sometimes because I share so much of my stuff on social media, you do get always some haters and some kickback, and it's not always pleasant. And I'm one of those people that kind of, and Pascal knows this, kind of, if someone says something negative to me, I take it very personally. And I'm kind of that person that wants everyone to like me, better for worse. And sometimes I can get too emotionally involved in others' opinions on what I'm doing or what I'm saying. And that I find difficult to deal with as well. That can cause me some stress and anxiety. So I think mostly it's the social kind of aspect with bodybuilding that is more difficult for me. I don't know, have you got a different view, Pascal?
No, basically all the things you said, I struggle with myself as well, but also from a psychological perspective and the self-doubt, self-perception, of course, and the paradox between you being aware or trying to optimize your body composition and actually love building your body and your physique. That is bodybuilding, right? But at the same time, not liking your body and liking the way you look, right? And I've talked about it in the past that I've never, ever had a physique and a look I liked about myself, where it was just like, never been there, right? And doing bodybuilding only makes me more aware of that fact, because I'm conscious about my body on a regular basis, because I'm trying to build that one, right? And yeah, so the psychological aspect of bodybuilding, I think, is really, really hard. And that isn't the thing about competing in it for itself. So the psychological aspect of enduring a caloric deficit or sticking to your calories, that's not what I'm talking about, but more so the inner struggles you have with yourself and the inner battles. And also, on a side note, what is working for you and what's not. Deciphering the information on the internet, for example, on the scientific literature that is valuable to you and that may or may not work for you. So let's just take the recent example of volume as the key driver for hypertrophy, or one of the key drivers for hypertrophy. There are so many discussions on the web right now on whether it is mechanical loading or really just the volume, and then we need to decipher what the term volume actually is. Are we speaking on set numbers? Are we speaking of the total workload being done? All that kind of stuff. And when you are zipping through all of that, that can be so overwhelming at times, even for people who know the topic or know the matter and know the scientific literature. When there's so much conflict going on, you of course start to doubt your own things. Is it really like that? Because there's so much speaking against it, but then there's so much actually backing up my beliefs, right? And that just the inner conflict all the time is just things that I'm struggling with the most. That my head is actually, and my mind is my worst enemy.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that was a great addition. I think that's really good. I think a lot of people will be able to feel that as well. We'll go on to the next question, which hopefully this is from Bex00, says, is 3 full body days enough for muscle growth? Now, this could be a very long question, and I don't know if you want to say, or I could go over why it's not maybe the best question.
He asked whether it is enough for muscle growth.
Yes.
Didn't he? So we could actually say, sure, if you're doing plenty of progressive overloading exercises, and in that case, then the total amount of workload, then sure, you can definitely make some still tremendous progression. Also, when you are, as an individual responding to that stimulus you're providing the body, if that's sufficient for you to grow, perfect. Some people need less volume, some people need more volume to grow. I'm sure people sometimes need to only do 3 total body workouts per week because they don't have the time to recover properly, because there are other things in their lives that actually require their energy. But yeah, I think that's definitely, it can be enough, definitely, for sure.
Yeah, I think most people, and the reason I say maybe it's not a great question is because it lacked lots of context, and I think you provided a lot of context. And I just say, just as a short, in my head, I think anyone who's advanced and wants to go beyond that, I think would struggle on 3 full body sessions. I don't think they'd really progress. I think they'd really struggle to do sufficient quality volume. But for anyone who's intermediate and below, I think you could probably still progress on 3 days per week. Not necessarily optimally for everyone, but I think you could still see great progress with that.
The question is just, how much work can you do in these 3 sessions? I mean, if you have the entire day, maybe then
midday,
yeah, I don't know. Maybe then that is definitely sufficient. But I assume that you have some other obligations and duties and tasks throughout the day, and that you only have like maybe 1 or 2 hours to spare. And then in that case, it's like Steve said, that frequency becomes the mean to actually spread volume across the week or accordingly, so that you can still have quality sessions in an adequate amount of volume. And in that case, I think that for optimal growth, maybe not. For some, yes. For others, not. But yeah, then we are going down the rabbit hole where we need to have more context to individualize.
Yeah, I think I know of some advanced trainees, I think, who actually train 3 days per week full body. And I think they are the exception, not the rule, in that they can progress with that because they respond really well to low volume. Whereas I think a lot of advanced trainees, and as more studies come out, it shows they kind of need quite a lot. And I think a lot of people would struggle to get that in. So yeah, brilliant answer, Pascal. If we get on to the next one, I don't know if you want to say anything else.
You too. Brilliant answer, Steve.
NJ_UFC_fan. I don't know who NJ are, but maybe other people do. So they said, keep in cardio in the off season, ? Not to burn calories, but to help performance. So do we keep cardio in the off season to aid performance?
So I'm just trying to come up with an example where I think that it might be beneficial for performance. So when your work capacity is really shitty and you're doing one set of squats, let's say in the rep range of 6 to 8, and you are burned out already and can't repeat the same set or the same performance for the next set, maybe have a look at your overall work capacity and maybe implement some cardio. Might be a decent thing to do. Other than that, maybe when you are also training more so for health outcomes instead of performance or physique goals, then I think maybe it might be feasible as well. You always have to consider that cardio is non-specific for bodybuilding goals. It is a tool that we can actually use for energy expenditure, but it doesn't really help us building some muscle tissue, and it only takes away some of our energies from some of the energy we have, and some of the fatigue we have to reduce for the resistance training, and all you're doing on top of that will take away from your ability to recover for the next training session. So I'm having a hard time really thinking of other examples other than the ones I'm already mentioned. So I don't know if you have any.
Yeah, I think in the context of bodybuilding, because that is what our channel is all about, like physique development and everything like that, not generic other sports and things where cardio might have more of a role. Like you said, for a bodybuilder, it's very non-specific. And when I'm thinking about improving cardiovascular fitness, generally the better way for people to do that or superior way of getting outcomes for that is like high intensity intervals or something along those lines. And then when I think about doing that within a hard training cycle, I just know that would take away from my ability to actually train, and it would eat into my recovery stores. And then when I think about specificity of like everything in my program should build towards my overall goal, that's building me to get fitter, but it's taking away from my stimulus for muscle growth. I just don't feel like as a bodybuilder, what do you need to be fit for? You need to be able to do your lifts. And if you're struggling to do your lifts, then I think, then you probably have a problem, and maybe you do need to address some cardiovascular things. But I think not many people need to do that. I think most people are fit, healthy, like bodybuilders have good cardiovascular fitness generally, I think, because they're doing high volumes. And that is very taxing on the heart anyway. When we're thinking about CV, that's just the heart pumping. So I don't know. I don't program CV for my bodybuilding kind of in their off season, apart from to warm up, burn a few calories potentially, but not for the purpose of getting fitter and for performance.
No, we've both mentioned specificity there. And I do remember last year that you had a conversation with an individual, and I don't want to name him simply because of the credibility. And I do respect him, and not that anyone gets a wrong idea about him. So that you had the discussion about, I think, prowler pushes or something like that while you are training for bodybuilding. And then you brought up the argument of why not, instead of doing that single bout of HIIT, why not do an additional set of, let's say, squats, for example? Because basically it's the same energy you're quote unquote expending, because it is a 30 to 60 second set all out, and it's basically the same. So when I once recorded a squat where I looked at the time span, And it took me like 50 seconds to get through the set of 8 repetitions. And my heart rate was just skyrocketing, right? So it is a valid argument of then saying that why instead of HIIT, because it takes away from your recovery and it has such a high impact on your overall fatigue levels, why not do instead of that another set if you have the capacity to actually go out and do some HIIT training?
Mm-hmm. No, I think that was a great addition, and that answered kind of the specificity thing. So, no, I think we're on the same lines there. We can get to the next question, which is quite a cool question, actually, is from IL_Ben Arab. This is, you should have got you saying these names, but oh well. They're not really names, they're Instagram tags or whatever handles. So they have asked, how do you deal with bad sessions when your performance drops and you don't understand why?
Well, so recently I read a post from AJ Morris, and that one was really, really good because he just recently had a bad session. And he said basically that in the past, when something like that happened, he was just frustrated that it happened, went home and was pissed the entire day. Now when it happens, he actually tries to find the reason why it happened so that you can possibly avoid it in the future. And I think that this is something I myself didn't do as well in the past. And when I just read that, and that just made so much sense to me because I had so many bad sessions, and this is something you simply have to endure. That is just going to happen every once in a while, right? But when it's going to happen, that you are trying to find the reason for it and to come up with a solution that when it comes around the next time that you have an alternative at hand.
No, I think that's great. And I saw his post there as well, and it just rang true to a mature lifter having that perspective. And I think it takes a mature lifter because when we first start lifting, we don't even, we just think the body's like this machine that just improves over time and should work for us whenever we can. So I think reverse engineering kind of the session, why it could have been poor is really helpful because then you can look back and be like, okay, so like whatever it might be, my pre-workout nutrition wasn't great, my sleep wasn't great, or maybe I had a bit of a cold, whatever it might have been. It's just like, I know, I don't know, but I think when you have maybe a binge or something like that, you can always have a look at it. I mean, there's no point like dwelling on it and being really stressed about it. That's not going to help the situation. But if you can identify why it occurred, then you can learn from that in future and progress with it. And I don't think there are any real mistakes within the gym unless you get yourself completely injured. It's all just lessons. And it's hard. And I know it's really hard because 9 times out of 10, if I'm looking like I'm having a poor session, like I'll make it even worse by maybe pushing my relative intensity too hard or adding a set, and I'll just make it so much worse, or letting form break down. These are never good solutions. They cause you long-term pain and anguish. Just take a sit back and like realize this is a long-term game completely.
Yeah. And here's a quote for you to put on a meme. The only bad session there is are the ones you didn't have.
Oh, yes. I swear that's from someone.
Yeah, I think I picked it up somewhere.
So I think that was a good answer. We've got so many questions. Let's get to this next one. So this is from Lee Manch _. And he says, how to manipulate training when you miss a lift, for example, missing reps on the... and then it stops. I'm guessing we don't have enough space on there. So manipulating training when you miss a lift. I can put an example to this because one of my clients recently was doing, they kind of, for example, did squats 3 by 100 kilos last week, and they got like 10, 8, 7. And they were aiming for a repetition range of 6 to 10, say. Then this week they did 105 and they got 10, 6, 4. And so they were like, oh, my total rep volume is down. I'm going to do another set to make up the volume. So I'm doing more than last week or as much as last week. And I think that can be appropriate, but it's incredibly fatiguing because you're adding a whole entire another set. So I think you can do that sort of adjustment in a week before like deloading, because added fatigue isn't such a problem. You're going to have such a clean slate coming the next week. But if you do that early on within your mesocycle and you're adding sets because your reps are a bit lower than they should be, I think you're running into a problem. I don't know if because there's so many different scenarios of when you might miss a lift or, I don't know. It could be powerlifting that you could go into here as well.
No, I think it was a great answer. And the only thing I have to say, so when it comes to my own training, I haven't missed a lift I don't even remember anymore. That is crazy. It's not really because I always try to stay shy away from failure. And when I missed a lift, then it was probably because I either got injured, which I also can't remember that it was so severe that I needed to stop the lift in and for itself, or because of a technical kind of misgrew or anything like that. But it's funny because whenever I'm benching in the gym, I never have a spotter. Never ever, because I know what I can handle.
Yeah.
Even when it's a shitty day, I can actually do the weight. All right, always. And it's so funny when I see. So it isn't that long ago that I was still training in my old gym, and there was one guy who asked me whether I can help him with his bench, and I saw already that it's way too much weight for him. And fair enough, I said, let's do that. I will help you. How many reps do you want to do? And he basically said 5. Okay, let's roll with it, right? And I helped him, and I needed to help him with 3. So on the third rep, I needed to grab the bar already and really pull on it to get the third rep up. And then I thought he wanted to rack it, right? So I pulled it to the rack, and then he kept it over him already and wanted to continue for 2 additional reps. And after that, after we were finished, I just walked away, because it was just like, come on, dude, this is how you get injured. And this is just so stupid, because it doesn't really help you to grow any kind of muscle at all.
I think I'm the same with you, Pascal. I'm watching, whether it's people in the gym or even on social media, and I can see that they've gone to like 0 reps in reserve, basically. So I can see they haven't got another rep in them. And then I watch and I'm like, you're going for another rep. You know you haven't got this rep. And always they just end up dropping it or like having a spot or something. And it's just, I'm completely the same. I know my limits. I know I don't want to go for that extra rep because the fatigue and injury risk produced from getting it isn't worth the potential benefit of getting that extra rep. You're not seeing exponential growth.
That's exactly it. I think for me, it's the same, that I don't think it's worth to push it to that extra level. You can always do another set.
Yeah.
If you know that you're going to fail now, or if you know that the last rep is a hit or miss, rack it and just take like 10 seconds and do that additional rep. It doesn't make that much of a difference, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, in the end, if you always push it to that extreme level, there's always a trade-off. It's like you said, it's simply not worth to push to that level when the trade-off is the fatigue accumulation or maybe even eventually injury.
Yeah, completely. So we get to the next one, and this is from our friend Muffins. So this is from Full As Muffins. His Instagram is Full As Muffins, which is hilarious.
His wife is called Cupcake.
I am assuming this is actually him. I don't know who else it would be.
Yeah.
So Muffins has said, good idea to do more stressful exercises to reach MRV with less sets for muscle W high MRV. Oh, I wish I understood what this question was asking.
So is he asking to do things that are in general more strenuous, something like heavy compound lifts, let's say deadlifts and squats, instead of more isolation work that are still kind of targeting the same muscle groups overall?
Yeah, I guess this is, like do a squat and do 3 sets, or do like 6 sets of a leg extension.
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
So I think that when we just take the current literature, right, then it basically says that total total workload is what counts in that scenario. How you achieve it is actually not as important. Sure, there needs to be a minimum threshold of intensity that hypertrophy can take place. I'm not speaking about, I don't know, walking and then count that as quad work and add that to your hypertrophy work. I'm really speaking about resistance training, right? And in that case, we also know that volume isn't always created equal. But that's why you can't really compare your leg press to my leg press, for example, right? Because it really doesn't tell us much. Yes, it spits out a number for total workload, but we can't really compare it to each other. But individually, so when you only look at your total workload with a time span of a couple of weeks for one single exercise, that's already a good indicator you can track. And in that case, I would be really surprised if something like your example wouldn't yield nearly the same hypertrophy, if not the same hypertrophy for a specific muscle group.
Yeah, I think that's a really good answer. And I think what frustrates me about these sort of questions is it's why an either or. Use both, because that will get you probably the best result, rather than just thinking, I'll just do all compounds or I'll do all isolation work. Why don't you kind of use a bit of both? And something I really like is almost trying to make the compound movements almost as isolation-like as possible. So if you're doing a squat, really do it more so focused for the quads. If you're doing, like, I don't know, a deadlift variation, make it more so emphasized to hit the hamstrings and the glutes, more so than trying to make things hit everything always. I think that can be difficult, but yeah, it's because I like big compound lifts. I don't think that there's never going to be a study on this, and there is no studies directly studying it, but I think for most people, the big compound lifts just make most sense. They're massively homeostatically disrupting. I think that's the word. So there's a lot of stress that's produced there. And a lot of them are just very good for ability to progressively overload, in terms of, like, you can micro load them with small plates and things like that, which a lot of machines don't have. And I think, yeah, they probably just put a place of stress on the body in a different way that machines can't. I don't think it's an either or it's a really hard question to actually, you can't say black and white, yes or no.
And I'm not entirely certain either whether this is actually the case, whether one exercise has superior gains over another when total workload is equated. I don't know. I have a hard time to think that it is, because that would mean that some exercises are actually better than others to build hypertrophy and not for specificity. So for athletic purposes or something. And I really have a hard time thinking that this is actually the case, because we have so many other case studies out there who trained in a different way and who produced amazing physiques as well. I don't know.
Well, I think we can end it there, because neither of us are completely sure on that. But I think we both agree in agreement that you probably want to use a combination where you can. Totally. So we're at 48 minutes of recording. So maybe we'll skip to, I know Aaron from Myonomics asked a question. We asked two. I don't know if I want to ask one of them, so I'll ask this one first. Who is, I'm interested, I actually don't know who this would be. Like, who is your most high profile and most advanced client? I don't know what high profile would mean in terms of maybe social media presence. I'm not sure.
High profile maybe in regards to talent or the training level, physique development and stuff like that. I don't know, because I think there comes much into play what defines a great athlete or what a great athlete is, at least in my opinion. I think it's not specifically only the physique or the way they look, because you can be genetically blessed and not having the greatest mindset or the greatest personality traits. And I think that now some people would be surprised why I'm bringing up personality traits, but I think that some of these things come probably into play when it comes to longevity, enjoying the bodybuilding journey, also the mindset in general. And I think that an overall athlete has all the abilities and all the characteristics that are necessary to actually be a great. So let's bring up Ronaldo, so the football player. I think, but this is only my opinion once again, he is an overall great athlete. He is a leader, team leader. He can actually lead his team. He has the eyes for strategies, how to set the team up. He's a great individual player. He can nearly do everything with the ball, which not all of the players can, right? Most of the players are specialized in one field and lack some of the skills or ability in another. And he's just a complete athlete in that sense, at least for the task of football. He nearly has it all, right? And this is something I think when you transition that over or carry that over to bodybuilding, what is really important for bodybuilding? Sure, it's genetics, muscle bellies, how big you can get, but also, of course, the psychological things you can endure, maybe, how you're set up. All these kind of things come into play, and that's really then hard to decipher or to tell who of the clients are on top there, because I think everyone has their things there where they are strong at, and things where they need a little bit more support.
Yeah, it's a really tough question, to be quite honest, because I have clients in mind where I know they have a fantastic physique, but there's no one who I would say, like, there's different characteristics between different people's physiques that I admire and I think are great. Like, I have clients that are fantastic at fat loss and get very, very lean quite comfortably. I have other people who have pounds of muscle, but they maybe lack other qualities that some of these other people have. And I think it's just like, if someone asked me, like, pick your favorite client, it would be like, it's like picking your favorite, child or family member. You're never gonna. Everyone has something, so it's really difficult. And yeah, I don't know about high profile clients. I don't know if that's a different scenario. We haven't really picked out any high profile clients particularly.
I don't know. I'm German speaking, so maybe there's a language barrier there.
High profile is like, to me, high profile means like someone a lot of people might know. So like if we coach like Bryce Lewis or something, I'm not completely sure.
So I assumed the correct thing there. I don't think that many of my clients are really that super active on Instagram. Yeah, sure, they have probably a good following, but it's not like any one of them is kind of Insta famous or something.
Same. So yeah, we have we coach a lot of coaches and they have great content on social media and stuff. So I think likewise, they're all pretty good high profile people. But the second question, which I wasn't even sure to ask either of these questions. They're both kind of hard questions in a way. The second question is, if you were both to get coaches now, who would they be?
I think I talked about it in the previous episodes.
Yeah, I think I
would like to have a coach, but there's no one I would actually.
I think you wanted us to really pick someone.
I couldn't think of anyone right now who I would. That's a lie. So let me tell you one thing. Here in the morning, I was driving in a car, right? And I was listening to Sigma Nutrition Radio, where he did a summary. So I'm listening. So I'm a little bit narcissistic. I'm listening to our podcast recently, or often. So I'm just repeating all the episodes and Sigma Nutrition, because there's so much to discover and so much to listen to. So don't judge me on that one. But today I heard a summary of Danny Landon. I think it was episode, 170 or something. I did a summary at the end of the year where he kind of brought up a couple of points some of the guests said. And there was Ryan Doris. And some of the people might know that I'm a huge fan of what Ryan is putting out, his mentality, the way he thinks about things. We had it on our podcast as well, especially because I said to Steve that I wanted him to come on. And I was actually thinking here in the morning, maybe I should reach out to Ryan Doris and ask for maybe a consultation and see if that's a good fit or not, because I really, really feel like that when it comes to coaching and for itself, he's a knowledgeable guy, but also I need more from a coach from a psychological perspective than only, you have to stick to your macros, to your training, and the reasoning behind that, but more so just having a discussion on a week-to-week basis. Mm-hmm. Just getting rid of all the thoughts I have and stuff like that. And I have the feeling that because of the way he thinks and for the things he's interested in, like psychology, philosophy and stuff, I'm really considering maybe reaching out to him.
Exciting. I didn't know that. That is the answer that I imagine Aaron was really looking for. Like, if you were to pick someone right now, who would it be? I don't know if I've said it before, but if Mike was to start coaching, he would be the first person. Like, I'd reach out to him pretty much immediately to see if he would consider taking me on. A lot of it to be getting into his mind. I'd love to be have him as a training partner, be in the gym with him, experience what he's going through and everything. It's just whenever I've spent a lot of time with him, and I spent the whole day with him on his birthday in 2016, I think it was. Yeah. It's just crazy what you pick up from an individual when you're surrounded by them all the time. And I guess it's the same when you're checking in with someone weekly. However, I think someone like Ryan, I think to learn the art of coaching and to understand like the psychological component, I think he'd be great for that. So yeah, I really struggle with the idea of giving everything to someone. It's a hard one. I think Aaron struggles with the same, but
same with me, mate. Same with me, because I'm always contemplating, and there's always an ambivalent state inside of me where I'm just like, yes, I would love to have a coach, and I don't want to give all to his ends and all out of my hands, actually, because I actually do like that control aspect and do like programming for myself and tinkering around, being kind of an engineer. But I think that this might be a misconception many people have, who are always spinning their wheels without realizing it. And that just after a couple of years, looking back in hindsight, they realize that they haven't made any kind of progress, or just little maybe, because they thought they have everything in check. So maybe I am in the situation of a Dunning-Kruger effect, where I'm thinking that I know it all for myself. I know what is working for me, but actually I don't know jack shit about myself.
Well,
could be.
I think that's an interesting point, because I think people who are listening who maybe coach themselves, I think absolutely fine. I think the problem comes in is where you're saying, if you're coaching yourself and you're not getting results, like that's where, or not as good as, maybe you're having very slow progress. I don't know what it could be, but if you're questioning what you're doing and you're really unsure about it, I think you probably could get a lot out of having a coach. Whereas if you're very confident in what you're doing and it's going well, like I don't see a reason why you would need to have a coach. You're specifically going into contest prep, so that makes a bigger reason to why that might be helpful, especially it's your first time actually going to go to stage this time. So it's kind of a new experience there. Have we got time? We're at 58 minutes. I don't know if we want to
come on, let's
scroll and pick one. So I'm trying to find a good one. Oh God, that's going to be a long answer.
Please not.
So, I don't know if this is an easy one to answer, and we can finish it here. So this is 7030 Fitness, and he has asked, counting trace protein in your total daily intake. Do you do it?
Counting trace protein.
So like
in carbohydrates.
Yeah, like oats have protein, vegetables have protein. Do you count this?
Yeah.
Or how do you manage
that? I always think that when the question arises, you always have a really comprehensive answer to that.
This is why I picked it, because I know what I was going to say.
That's so good.
Basically, I did some thinking about it, because obviously protein from non-high quality sources lack the total amino acid full profile. And so when I spoke to Mike about it, he was like, when he's considering protein intake, he considers the lower quality sources, like count half of them. So when I then did some research on like vegetables and like just various carbohydrates per 100 grams, how much protein do they tend to have? And that was 40 grams of protein per 100 grams. So then half of that would be, 40? I've forgotten my own rule. I know what it is. I know per 100 grams of carb. Let me see if I can work it backwards this way. Per 100 grams of carbs, I add 10 grams of protein. This is it. So per 100 grams of carbohydrates from one of these lower quality sources, you tend to get 20 grams of protein. So like 100 grams of oats, there might be around roughly 20 grams of protein there. So we count 10. And so there's 10 that we're not counting towards our protein needs. So then that 10 I add to the protein intake. So if I'm 180 pounds and I'm on 500 grams of carbs, then I add 50 to my 180 to make sure I'm getting enough sufficient total quality. And I think that is definitely a overestimate of how much you would probably need, but we're all bros and we like to eat more protein. And when you are on a high carb diet, it makes it a bit easier that you can actually make sure you're having extra protein. I know I've had clients where in the past I didn't do this, and like I had their protein quite low, especially if they're quite small. And when their calorie intake's really high, they're like, fuck, Steve, how do I keep my protein this low? It's really a struggle. So that's what I do. Sorry for the fluff.
Oh, cool.
Awesome.
That's about it. I think we got it all.
There was a lot of questions, guys, so I apologize to all the ones we didn't get there, but thank you for submitting them. We always enjoy them, apart from Aaron's, which were horrible questions. So no, we appreciate them all. And yeah, I don't think we've got anything to particularly say. Nothing's going on our end, so we'll leave it here.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Talk to you soon. Cheers.